Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Liam's Fight Night Picks. I've been away for a couple of weeks, so it's fantastic to finally back with you all. I'm delighted to say that my guest this week is my very good mate Sam from SW Fight Hub. How are we, buddy?
Really good, mate. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about some cracking fights. Picked a good week to come back on.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting weekend. So we're going to hop around from Florida out to on Friday night, out to Riyadh season, of course, on Saturday for the first ever non-pay-per-view Riyadh season card, which I'm sure we're going to talk more about later on, which is exciting to get into. But yeah, there's, like you say, there's some good fights across both cards. I know a lot of attention is drawn towards a circus of a main event, shall we say, on Friday night, but there are some cracking fights on that cards. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with Mario Barrios and Abel Ramos. It's 12 rounds for the WBC welterweight title. So people that might not know, Barrios is undefeated since his back-to-back losses against Furman and Tank Davis, but that's going back a few years now, them losses, so he's on a good run. And he is the current interim, we all love an interim title, the current interim title holder since he beat Jordani Ugas last year via a unanimous decision. So to get us started, mate, what do we make of Barrios? Obviously, we know he's lost at the highest level, but how do you rate him as a fighter?
Yeah, I actually think he's been upgraded, mate. I think he's the full champion now, I think. Barrios is a 147, the WBC. Yeah, like you said, he was weight drained against Tank, so I don't read too much into the performance against Tank, to be honest with you. He lost to Thurman, like you said, he had back-to-back. Your Dennis Ugas is a decent win on the record. You know, we saw him give Errol Spence a bit of trouble, didn't we, when they fought? You know, Ugas is a solid operator. Abel Ramos, do I think he's going to do too much to Barrios? I don't think so, personally, to be honest with you. I think it's more of a opportunity Barrios couldn't turn down to be on this historic Netflix card on Friday night, to be honest with you. Same with Bruce Shushu Carrington, who's top prospect at featherweight. I know we're not really going to talk about him on the show, but these fighters who maybe not the most well-known household names are going to get a big opportunity on Friday night, really, to put themselves in the shop window, if you want to call it that. You know, we saw Ennis fight last weekend. I'm sure Barrios is hoping to get a unification fight probably after this. So he's rumored to fight Pacquiao for a while, wasn't he? But yeah, don't anticipate too much coming back from Abel Ramos, sadly, in this one.
No, I mean, you just touched on it yourself. You look at Ramos, he's 28-6-2. He's lost 3 of his last 5 fights. One of those was a split decision lost against the before mentioned Ugas. I mean, how
does he get a world title fight? That's what I don't get.
That's going to be my question. Yeah. His only victory is 1 8-rounder this year, which was, it says it all, really. He's not really a well-known fighter. He doesn't have the pedigree of being a former world champion or anything like that. And I mean, look, everyone's got their views on this card. MVP obviously do things in a certain way. And I feel like this is another fight on that card that they're trying to steer in a certain direction. So we'll move on from this one quite quickly, mate, but I'll let you get a prediction in.
I think Barrios will win on points, to be fair. I think I don't think he's the biggest puncher in the world, Barrios, to be honest with you. And I'm pretty sure Ramos has only been stopped once or twice or something like that. I just having a look at his record as well. He fought Cody Crowley, who's meant to fight Boots back in the summer as well, and lost on a majority decision. So yeah, I think it seems like a tough guy. I'm not going to sit there and say I've watched 10 of his fights because I haven't. But just going based off what I've seen with Barrios, I think he'll win a comfortable decision.
Yeah, so you've just queued me up perfectly there. Barrios, it's been 4 years since his last stoppage, so he came back in the lockdown days of 2020. Since then, he's won all his fight victories that he's had by points decisions. So it's been a while since his knockout power has been there, but I just have a feeling it's been set up for him to get a stoppage victory this weekend. I think it'll be his first stoppage victory in 4 years. I'm saying between rounds 4 to 7, but that's more because I'm not expecting a lot to come from Ramos and wonder if he is going to fold rather quickly when the pressure comes on. But that is one to look out for. I believe it's the first fight on the Netflix segment on, it'll be Saturday morning UK time, Friday night out in America. But we will move on. Well, we're going to jump back into this American card a little later on for another fight. But we'll move over to Riyadh and Riyadh season delivering for the fight fans. Turkey giving us a non-pay-per-view card, which we're all very grateful for with the number that we've had so far this year. And the first fight we're going to talk about is Oscar Duarte and Akhmedov. It's 12 rounds at super lightweight. I suppose Oscar Duarte is probably most well-known for his defeat to a cumbersome, shall we say, Ryan Garcia in December last year. Question for you. That's his only stoppage on his record as well. What do you make of Duarte? As you say, a padded record would probably be a fair way to describe it, but he gave a reasonably good account of himself against Ryan, didn't he?
Yeah, he did okay in the Garcia fight. Obviously, it was stopped in the end. Beat a shot to bits Jojo Diaz, who just lost again this past weekend. What's that, 6 in a row Jojo Diaz has lost now, or something like that. So, yeah, like you say, his record is padded a little bit, but you have to look at what is there. You know, he can bang. He's most of his wins have come by way of knockout. What's the word to describe him? He'll beat people at a certain level, but if he goes right to the top of the sport, I don't think he's at that level. I think he'll always come up short.
Yeah, mate, I tend to agree with you. It's interesting. The Ryan Garcia fight, obviously, everyone wanted to know where Ryan was off the back in the tank fight. He moved across to Derek James, didn't he? And he had all these changes. And it was, like I said, it was a cumbersome performance. It wasn't put it this way, it wasn't on the same level of the performance we got against Devin Haney in April this year. Obviously, there's asterisks to be put on that fight, but it was a very different performance, to say the least. But if we look at Akhmedov, he's 10-3 with 9 knockouts in his 10 wins.
Yeah, he can bang.
It shows he can bang, and he's never been stopped. So he's not been stopped. And 2 of his 3 losses, one was by a split decision and one was by a majority decision. So arguably, you could say he's been hard done by in a couple of his fights. And we've talked about it all the time on these Saudi cards. This is another fighter that's probably being brought in to make his opponent look good. And Akhmedov could really do something. You impress Turkey, you're getting put back on these shows. If you impress him early, there could be a slot still in December there for you on the early prelims, couldn't you? It's really an opportunity for him to take, isn't it?
If you look down his record, actually, to be honest with you, you got his losses are to Alberto Puello, who's about to be upgraded to WBC champion in that weight after I think Haney was made champion in recess or whatever you call it. Kenneth Sims, again, solid operator, and Barrios, who we've just spoke about on the Netflix card. So he's lost 3 decisions to 3 really solid operators. So it's actually a good fight on the outset, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's another one of these fights that times that Turkey's given a fighter opportunity. We're probably both going to back Duarte to get a victory, but there's always a shock on these Riyadh season cards, and this could be the shock of the night, couldn't it? But for myself, mate, I think Duarte, this is an opponent tailor-made for him to look good. It's another golden boy special, shall we say. They like to make their fighters look good and boost their egos every so often, don't they? I think Duarte will... I'm unsure if he'll get a stoppage. I think it may be a scrappy points victory, but wide nonetheless. How about yourself?
I'm going to pick an upset. I'm going to pick Akhmedov to get an upset in this one. Yeah, I've not really watched much of the guy, to be completely honest with you, but just having a look at the people who he's lost to and the fact he can bang, and we've seen Duarte show vulnerabilities in the past. I think it's I'm not confident in the pick, but I think if you're looking for an upset on that card, obviously a lot of the other fights are closer, but if you're looking for a decent upset, then I think this could be one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, mate, I agree. If there's going to be an upset on this card, I think from odds-wise as well, will be this fight. But you never know with these Saudi cards. We may get another couple of fighters falling over the top rope out of the ring like we got back in the card. You just never know what you're going to get. So we'll move on to another fight on this undercard, and it's one of my favourite fighters, non-European-based fighters, in Jose Ramirez, going up against Arnold Barboza Jr. It's 12 rounds at super lightweight. Obviously, Jose Ramirez, if you're a fan in the UK and that name's ringing a bell, he fought Josh Taylor to become undisputed back in 2021. Josh Taylor, of course, took a unanimous decision victory in what was a thrilling fight back in those weird COVID times when no one really knew what was going on. It was difficult for people to travel. But he's rebuilt well, Ramirez, since then. He's had 3 consecutive victories. This is his 4th fight. And every single fight, he's had 2 that have been very wide on the card, unanimous decision victories, and one where he got a stoppage in the 11th round after completely dominating an opponent. So Ramirez, former undisputed world champion, but he's still a threat, isn't he? There's still more to come from him.
Yeah, I think, he had 2 of the belts, didn't he? And Taylor put the other 2 up, and it was a very close fight.
WBC. That's what he has.
Yeah, he beat Hooker for the other ones, just looking down his record. Yeah, I like Jose Ramirez. I've always been a fan of him. His fight against Josh Taylor was great. Taylor scored a couple of knockdowns, didn't he? And that kind of swayed the fight. I remember he caught him with an absolute peach on the break. Ramirez kind of just let his guard down on the inside. But Josh Taylor back then was a different animal. We know that. like you say, rebounded since then. Pedraza, Richard Comey, and Francis Barthélemy are probably past their best when he fought them. But I'm unsold on Arnold Barboza Jr., if I'm being completely honest. He lost to Sean McComb last time out. It was a robbery. I'm sorry, but it was a robbery. And Sean McComb, God bless him, he's a solid fighter. The public nuisance, one of the best nicknames in boxing. But Barboza looked very laboured in that performance, if I'm being completely honest. So he's got to come out here with a point to prove, because he was touted to fight Jack Catterall, wasn't he, instead of Regis Prograis the other week. So, but obviously this opportunity presented itself where he's probably getting a really big payday from Riyadh season and so on and so forth. But it's good matchmaking, actually. I'm impressed with the matchmaking. The winner's going to probably go on to fight for a world title. I believe it's some form of WBO final eliminator, which is Teofimo's belt, is it?
Yeah, Teofimo's WBO. So it's also a belt that Ramirez held previously, so we know he's going to have some pulling power with the WBO. We know how he likes to work. But you've teed it up perfectly for Barboza. So he's 30-0. It's his third fight of this year. Like we said, Sean McComb beat him that night, but I don't want to be like I'm being down on Golden Boy all the time, because I am going to be a bit down on the next fight we're going to talk about. But we know how Golden Boy works. They like to look after their own talent. They like a bit of home cooking. And we're as guilty of it in the UK. I'm not trying to say we're above it, but that unfortunately stunk of a bit of home cooking from Oscar and Bernard Hopkins that night. What's interesting is, though, despite the fact he's 30-0, this is his first 12 rounds.
12 rounds before. Yeah, it was just
never fought 12 rounds, which is it's given me, in some ways, Jaime Munguia vibes. Okay, by 25, Munguia was a world champion, but he picks up a vacant title and he defended it very cleverly, didn't he? Until he moved into the Liam Smith
There's a pattern here. Arnold Barboza, Jaime Munguia, Zurdo Ramirez. They're all similar kind of records, all Golden Boy promoted fighters. Well, Munguia was, at least anyway, throughout his first 50-odd fights or whatever it was, Yeah,
exactly. And that's the thing. It's a familiar Golden Boy pattern that we're seeing with Barboza Jr. And like it says on the screen here, it's time for Barboza to step up. If you can get a win against the former 2-belt world champion in this weight class, then you deserve to be looking at fighting Teofimo Lopez, etc., etc. But if you don't deliver, then it's been all bluster and all careful maneuvering, unfortunately, and all the criticism that's thrown away of Golden Boy and how they look after their prospects will just be proven yet again. It was proven with Jaime Munguia against Canelo last year. Okay, he's now with Top Rank, and this is another case of where it could happen, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, mate. Absolutely. It's interesting. If you look, do you want my prediction for the fight?
Yes, I was just going to get into your prediction, mate.
I think Jose Ramirez is going to win this one. I do, and I would say that Barboza will be a solid favorite in the fight. But Jose Ramirez has proved that he's at a certain level. I'm not sure that that Barboza has yet. What's his best win? A faded Jose Pedraza?
That's what you'd have to go with off his records. But like you say, a faded fighter, not the force he once was.
Yeah, I mean, you look. Yeah, I mean, fought Mike Alvarado 5 years ago. Mike Alvarado was shot to bits in 2000. He seems to have been matched very well throughout his career, if I'm being honest. And Ramirez, yes, he's only lost to Josh Taylor, although he's got a decent knockout record. I don't think he's the biggest puncher in the world. So I believe he'll win on points. But I think Barboza's going to get exposed fairly. Well, he was exposed in his last fight. Let's be honest, Sean McComb is meant to be a walkover for him. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that he just didn't have an off night last time out and so on and so forth. If you look at Boots last weekend, he had an off night and all of a sudden everyone wants to fight him. So, sometimes it can be a blessing if you address the issues or whatever it is. So, yeah, we'll see. But I can't not pick Ramirez. The eye test for me is to pick him.
Yeah, so mate, I've got written down here that Ramirez's career, mixing it at a higher level, and the fact that he is a former unified champion in this weight class, that's going to be the difference in this fight. You could have a 60-0 padded record, but if you're not ever mixing it at the right time with top level contenders, it's very difficult to say that you're going to be able to swim without drowning. And I'm not saying Barboza is going to be completely out of his depth from Saturday night. I'm hoping it's a competitive fight, but you've just, like you say, the eye test, what both fighters have done, you have to favour Ramirez. And I don't think it will be a stoppage. I think Barboza is too tough to be stopped, and I'm questioning whether Ramirez, especially at the age he's at now, still has the power. But Ramirez, probably 8 rounds to 4, 9 rounds to 3, that sort of vibe. But again, it will be intriguing to see if Barboza is as good a fighter as his 30-0 record on paper suggests, then this could really be his coming out party, couldn't it?
Definitely, mate. Yeah, should be a good fight, actually. I think it's the co-main event of this card. So, yeah, looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah, so we'll move on. Again, before we move back on to Friday night, there's another fight we're going to touch on this card. And it's my moan of this weekend, unfortunately. So it's Zepeda and Tevin Farmer, 12 rounds for the interim WBC lightweight world title. It's kind of how I feel about this fight. Let's be really honest. Zepeda has sat on a number 1 ranking for close to 2 years, if we're being honest with it. Yes, you can make the argument he was only mandated to fight Shakur at the WBC convention this summer. But let's be real about it. They could have made that fight at any time. Zepeda was ready for it. Shakur Stevenson would have taken that fight. He's just been manoeuvred carefully. They are now digging up, and this is no disrespect to Tevin Farmer, a man that was world champion close to 10 years ago, who is retired after his last fight in July, who was previously retired for 18 months. And it's been brought upon the narrative of, a former world champion from the weight division below. This will look phenomenal for Zepeda. The reality is, it's a really disappointing fight, isn't it? And I'm not sure if you're the same as me. I'm a big Zepeda fan. I think he's got a lot of quality potential.
Yeah, I like Zepeda. I do. His body of work's not good enough though for someone who's 31-0. You know, it's just not. You know, he's beat Maxi Hughes, Jojo Diaz again. He's been shot to bits for a long time. You know, I do worry about him for a potential Shakur Stevenson fight. Again, one of those guys who's a load of wins, but when you dig deeper into the record, who has he actually fought? Another Golden Boy special. I hope not, because like you say, I do like Zepeda. The Tevin Farmer fight, it was initially talked about being Shakur, and then he had a kid, Zepeda, wasn't it? And then he wasn't ready for October, and then Shakur's hand went, and so on and so forth. So this is nothing more than a layup for February the 22nd. There's a deal agreed in principle. I watched an interview with Eddie Hearn and Ariel Hawani earlier. Said there's a deal in principle for Zepeda to fight Shakur Stevenson. This is nothing more than a stay busy fight for Zepeda. There's no knockout threat at all from Tevin Farmer. There's no threat whatsoever. Actually, is super feather that's moved up to lightweight, like you say, is 34 years old now. He's way past his best. He was past his best a while ago. I don't really see the point in this fight, to be honest with you. But then again, you know, it's happening.
Yeah. We're sitting here trashing it, and come Sunday morning, we're doing a review show saying Tevin Farmer's back, baby. Look what he's done. But if we go with what's on paper in black and white, he's 33, 6-1. Like we say, he was one of Eddie Hearn's first signings when it was Matchroom USA. And think that was coming up to 10 years ago now. So that just shows sort of how long we're talking ago. And if you look at his recent record, he's had third outing of the year. He's had 1 win, which was a first round KO against an opponent who hadn't fought in 3 years before and hasn't fought since. So take from that what you will. And then he was utterly schooled for 10 rounds on a top rank card in the summer, wasn't he? Who's against his opponent escapes me, but he was utterly schooled, and he looked a shadow of the artist formerly known as Tevin Farmer in that. But he is experienced. He does have world title nous, doesn't he? So if Zepeda is green, is fresh, is overlooking this fight, and Tevin Farmer's got 1 big night left in him, there's nothing to say he's not going to be able to do it. But unfortunately, we should be past this with Zepeda. It's, again, bringing Jaime Munguia back into it. These were the types of fights we were getting with Munguia when he was at this stage of his career, when we wanted to see him kick on and take on big names, move towards Golovkin and Canelo, who were, you know, there for him in his weight class at the time, but of course never happened. But they were there for him to fight at that time. It stinks of another overprotected golden boy boxer, doesn't it? Unfortunately, which is a shame. It's not what we want to see. But I'll move on to your prediction for this one, mate.
Yeah, Zepeda when he wants for me in this one, Liam. I think I'll be surprised if we see a round 5. Put it that way.
Yeah, mate. I don't want it to sound like we're disagreeing with each other, but I've got it written down here. It's an emphatic stoppage victory for Zepeda on Saturday. Nothing else will do. If you carry Tevin Farmer for 12 rounds, okay, you're not going to get booed in Riyadh because it's not an American or British arena. But the fans at home, the fans on social media will be telling you that's not enough. Yeah, he's got to do it at any time he likes. I've said he's going to do it between rounds 3 and 6, but he can do it anytime he likes. It just depends how he wants to go about it. Does he want to maybe get a few rounds in and see if Tevin's got anything left, or is he just going to come out swinging for the fences, so to speak, and look to get it done early? We'll find out on Saturday night, that's for sure. Yeah, so we're going to move on. We're going to jump back to Friday night, Netflix. As it says here, it's the class amongst the chaos for me. It's Katie Taylor, it's Amanda Serrano, it's all the marbles in the super lightweight division. And let's be honest, it is one of the fights of the year. Forget the weekend, this is one of the fights of 2024. What they delivered at MSG in 2022, regardless of what you think of the decision, talking about the fight, talking about the spectacle, will be spoken about in 20, 30 years, just the event. And knowing those two boxers got in the ring and delivered a spectacle fit of the historic venue it was in. So it's been a long time coming, this rematch, hasn't it? I'm not sure about you, mate, but I'm very, very excited for it.
Yeah, look, like you say, one of the best fights of the year so far. There's no way it won't deliver. The clash of styles, we've already seen it before. We don't need any more case study to see that this is going to be a fantastic fight on Friday night. It's going to steal the show. We know that already. Just what happened at MSG, the first fight, it was absolutely incredible. One of the best fights that I've seen, whether it's males boxing or female boxing. Both ladies have got a ton of heart. They're going to be swinging for 10 rounds. I think we can pretty much guarantee that there's not going to be a finish here. But I think in this fight in particular, that's actually a good thing because we're going to get 20 minutes of just all-out war.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So just touching on Katie Taylor quickly for her record. She's 23-1 with 6 KOs. It's her first fight since avenging that loss to Chantel Cameron in Dublin in November last year in that incredible cauldron of an atmosphere. I do have to ask the question because of the stage of the career she's at. Exactly a year nearly of inactivity. Katie Taylor's Katie Taylor. She is a phenomenal talent and a once-in-a-generation fighter as well. But is there any concern, do you reckon, that it's been 12 months out of the ring near enough since the last performance?
I'm going to be controversial. I think Katie Taylor's been on the slide for a while, to be honest.
There's an argument for it, definitely.
I think she has. Obviously, the second Chantel Cameron fight was a really, well, to be fair, they were both good fights, actually. It was a good performance and she won the fight, I thought. But I thought she's shown signs. Obviously, had that Delphine Pursoon fight all those years ago that, many people scored to Pursoon. But yeah, I just think that the reactions are slow. Serrano did sting her a couple of times in the first fight. Again, a very, very close fight. So I'm not saying, Serrano won. It could have probably gone either way. I know many people did score it to Serrano, but she's 38 now, I believe, Katie Taylor. She may have 1 or 2 big nights left in her, but she had a long, grueling amateur career as well. She's been in a lot of tough fights. She does get hit a lot as well. She's a great boxer, but she does take shots. There's no doubt about that. She's been bloodied up and battered in a few fights. I wouldn't say I worry about 12 months out of the ring for her, but I do worry about her potentially being on the slide a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah, mate. It's an interesting one. She's possibly been on the slide since arguably the last couple of years, and it was good to see that she managed to come back in a second Cameron fight. I'll be honest, going into that, I wondered what she had left. I wondered if that would be her last stand, so to speak. But for anyone American fan screaming at the screen, talk about Serrano. Let's get into her. She is 47-2-1. She has an incredible 31 stoppages on that. And again, 2-minute rounds in female fights for the majority of her career, and she stopped 31 opponents. I mean, what can you say about her? She's a 9-time 7-weight division world champion. She's done it all. She's currently campaigning for 3-minute rounds, and she's had 2 fights with 3-minute rounds. MVP have ensured that she's getting paid on par with her male counterparts, which is absolutely fantastic. And she's just always been a fighter that delivers. And she'll deliver again on Saturday night. There is an argument for me that she's the favourite going into this fight. There is also the cynical part of me that thinks a bit of MVP home cooking. If this goes to the cards, unfortunately, unless it's a 10-round to kneel Katie Taylor masterclass, I think if this is close on the cards, we can unfortunately say which way it's going to go, can't we? Which is a shame. And I hope MVP prove me wrong on Friday night. But everything's being set up, isn't it, for Amanda Serrano to make this 1-1 on Friday night?
Yeah, look, Serrano's a fantastic fighter. There's no doubt. Look, she gave up her WBC belt of featherweight not that long ago, 126. Sky Nicholson owns the belt now. And she's fighting at 140 here. And she is outsized a little bit by Taylor, but there's no doubt she can punch Amanda Serrano. She definitely hurt Taylor in the first fight. And I think she's a bigger puncher than Katie Taylor. I definitely think she's fresher than Katie Taylor as well. She only had 9 amateur fights. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor probably had in the hundreds. In the sense of the MVP thing, I think that's real. Most definitely, they paid a hell of a lot of money to have Katie Taylor on this promotion. They've crossed the barriers of being exclusive to the zone and so on and so forth. Eddie Hearn and MVP are going through a dispute, I believe, as well currently. And, all these hurdles have been crossed because Jake Paul and MVP and whoever else is involved believe in Amanda Serrano that badly, and that they want her to get this result back so badly that they're willing to, pay Katie Taylor this astronomical amount of money that she simply couldn't refuse. 6 million is the reported figure, which is absolutely insane, considering that they made about $1 million, I think it was, each, which was revolutionary a couple of years ago. So credit to both of them for that, absolutely. But yeah, I think Katie's going to have to win and win big if she wants to take home the decision. Because I don't think she's knocking Serrano out.
I don't think either woman, cue a knockout in the second round, but I don't think either woman is going to stop the other one. I think we're going to get another 20 minutes where at the end we're up on our feet at 4 a.m. over here in the UK saying, wow, what a phenomenal fight. In terms of a prediction, look, my UK and Ireland bias is going to come out here, despite my fears that there is going to be some home cooking involved for all the reasons that we've just discussed. I'm going to back Katie Taylor. It will be another split decision for me just because they're so evenly matched, but I'm going to show a bit of bias to these shores and back Katie Taylor, but it's not a confident prediction from me.
Yeah, I'm going the other way, mate. I can't not see how Serrano doesn't get the job done this time. Now, I'm not talking about any home cooking here. I actually think she's going to win the fight clean on the decision. But if it's close, like you say, any split decisions, I believe, will go the way of the Puerto Rican.
Yeah, just to put an asterisk on it from me, this is not to say I believe that Amanda Serrano needs a hand from the judges to win. She is more than capable of winning. But my biggest fear in this fight is if it's close, as we've seen many times in boxing, and yes, as we've seen in the UK in recent years, I just fear they're going to side with Amanda Serrano. That is what I mean by that. She is a phenomenal talent, and she will be missed, as will Katie Taylor, when they both do finally hang up their gloves. So let me just put that one out there for any heat that may come my way. But we will move on to the main event for Riyadh season on Saturday night. It is Latino night. It is a Golden Boy promotion in conjunction with our old mate Ben Shalom, who we're doing a campaign to get part of his marketing team, as some viewers may know. It is Zurdo, Ramirez and Chris Billam-Smith. It is the WBO and WBA cruiserweight titles, or as our taglines it here, who wins the Eliminator for Jai Opetaia? Because let's be honest, that's where this fight is going. The winner of this knows they're going to be the underdog against Opetaia, but they'll have 2 belts to his 1. It's all about marketing and bargaining chips, isn't it, mate? That's where we're going to start with this one.
Yeah, 100%. Riyadh season and Turkey are big fans of Jai Opetaia. This fight's on a Riyadh season Latino night event. You put 2 and 2 together. Opetaia has been treading water for a long time now. And I don't mean in the sense of, he doesn't want to fight the biggest and best names because he is the Ring Magazine #1, I believe. But he hasn't been able to secure those fights yet. He's been fighting Ellis Zorro, Jack Massey, Jordan Thompson. Bradis in the rematch, which was a good fight, but Bradis was obviously past his best at the time. Jai Opetaia needs this fight just as much as the winner needs it as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, again, 100%. So we start off with Zurdo Ramirez. His record is 46-1 with 30 stoppages in that. He won the WBA strap in his last outing earlier this year. It was a vacant title. That was 118-110 across all 3 scorecards. So 10 rounds to 2 for those not as au fait with the scoring system as some others. But the interesting thing with Ramirez is, yes, okay, he's campaigned at light heavyweight where he was ultimately schooled by Dimitri Bivol back in 2020, 2021, I want to say, so a few years ago now. But before that, he started his career as a super middleweight and is the former WBO super middleweight world champion. His notable victory there was beating Arthur Abraham for the vacant belt. And no, it wasn't in Germany. He got Abraham over to America, out of Germany, where everything used to be tailored in his favor, and beat him, which, okay, you can say 2016, Abraham was on the slide, but that's something to pay attention to. But he flatters to deceive, does Ramirez. When you look through his records, he either has blowouts or wide points victories. In his one fight where he really, really, really stepped up in class against the fighter in their prime in Bivol, he wasn't competitive in the fight. By round 6, you were questioning his gas tank, weren't you? Okay, he's answered that question in recent fights. His gas tank seems to be better now. He's at 200 pounds. But he's a very high-level fighter if you look at his records, but what we've actually seen from the eye test is different. Would you agree?
Yeah, again, like we alluded to earlier, he's another one of those golden boy fighters that he's got a largely padded record. And yeah, he's got some good wins in there. But you just said about the Arthur Abraham fight all those years ago. Abraham was a finished commodity back then. He really was. And, he cashed himself for Abraham.
Yeah.
It was a cash out. He went over to America, like you say, and cashed his last. It might have been his last fight or his last but one fight or whatever it is. But Bivol completely exposed him. Chris Billam-Smith, not Dimitri Bivol. Let's be honest. Chris Billam-Smith, a good, tough, rugged fighter with tons of heart. But yeah, Zurdo, we're going to find out a lot about him. We know what Chris Billam-Smith's going to bring. We're going to find out quite a bit about Zurdo Ramirez, I think, this Saturday night in Riyadh.
Yeah, we are. And so we move on to Chris Billam-Smith. He is the WBO champion in this fight. He's 20-1, 13 stoppages. He's unbeaten since 2019, which is when he had his sole career loss against Richard Riakporhe. He avenged that by wide, but ultimately boring unanimous decision victory back in earlier this year in June in the outdoors of Selhurst Park. It's the third defense of this title that he won off his old stablemate Lawrence Okoli on that fantastic night in Bournemouth. But one thing for me that doesn't get spoken enough with Billam-Smith is his partnership with Shane McGuigan. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the story, just a quick background. Billam-Smith was brought in as a sparring partner for Anthony Fowler and Lawrence Okoli, funnily enough. And he had 7-0, I believe, at the time, but he'd only fought on sort of the small hall circuit. Off the back of his work he'd done in one training camp, McGuigan said, look, I'll give you 2 fights. Let's train. Let's see what we can do. And they've been on this incredible journey together ever since. Stuck together after the loss to Riakporhe, and look where they are now. The thing I love most about this relationship is their ability to adapt and come up with a game plan for whatever's in front of them. The way they nullified Lawrence Okoli wasn't sexy, wasn't attractive to watch, but how effective was it? Okoli had 4-point stocks, was knocked down 3 times. It was an ugly fight, but it was such an effective game plan. And that relationship for me can't be underestimated, mate. I'm not sure how you feel.
Yeah, look, Shane McGuigan is one of the best coaches in the world, regardless of what's happened with him and his father outside of the ring. Mm-hmm. Just genuine boxing coaching. But look at the call he made on the Joshua and Dubois uppercut on the radio when he was doing it. The man can see the pattern of a fight. He can see what's going on. And he's proved it over the years with Josh Taylor, Carl Frampton. There are many other case studies. But what he's done with Billam-Smith is nothing short of remarkable. And you can't just give the credit to Shane McGuigan. He's not the one going in there delivering and taking the punches. Chris Billam-Smith's been absolutely phenomenal. And like you say, he doesn't always win nicely. He's had some decent knockouts in there. I'm just thinking back to his performance against Masternak, which was a real weird one and a weird stoppage as well, like a rib break or something like that. So, he has thrown in the odd dud in there, Billam-Smith. He's not performing great every single fight, but I think it's a fascinating matchup. I genuinely think it's as close as a 50-50 as you can possibly get, this one. I really do.
Yeah, mate, it is. And why it's a 50-50 is, if we had this conversation, we had someone from across the pond during us, you could make an argument that they'd favour Zurdo Ramirez, probably because they're more used to seeing his fights. But Billam-Smith is someone we've seen come through with Matchroom, move over to Boxer and become, let's be honest, he is one of boxing's biggest marquee names. There's no disputing that. He is, for them, Ben Shalom is everything he can possibly have crossed on Saturday night. That he's got one of his biggest cash cows to take into 2025, and that's a separate conversation. It's going to be a thrilling fight, and this Billam-Smith, McGuigan, and Josh Pritchard. Let's give Josh his credit as well. Those 3 as a trio work fantastically. And yes, you're right. Billam-Smith has to get in there to execute, but I've never seen a fighter so attentively listening in the corner, taking in every word, having a conversation back. You don't always see that, and it just shows the level of trust that is there. But let's get a prediction for this one. It is a 50-50 fight, mate, but I'm going to have to push you for a prediction for this, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to back the Brit in this one. I am. I'm going to pick Chris Billam-Smith to get it done. I said Zurdo at first when the fight was announced. As it's got closer, I think Billam-Smith's going to win a split decision. I think it's going to be really, really close. Both men are tough. I don't envisage like knockdowns or anything like that. I think it'll be a good, close technical fight. But I think Billam-Smith is just riding the crest of a wave at the minute. And I honestly think that whatever comes up against him and in front of him, I don't think he's going to have no fear of Zurdo whatsoever. And I think he'll just about get it done. And just to be a little bit negative, I don't think it's going to be the best stylistic matchup of all time.
No, I don't think it's going to be a sexy fight. I don't think it's one that we're going to be rushing back and getting people to watch if they've missed it. which is possibly, arguably, why this isn't on a pay-per-view red season event. And that's no disrespect to either man, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with here. But I am with you, mate. I took a lot of heat. I had only just started up doing the YouTube stuff when this fight was announced, and I was very vehement in my praise for Billam-Smith and thinking he was be too much for a Paddy's Zurdo Ramirez. And I took a lot of heat on X when this fight was announced, but I stand by that prediction now. Zurdo Ramirez is a good fighter. He's a good operator, but things have to go his way. If you've got someone like Billam-Smith that's going to be like an irritated wasp, he's going to be there all night. He's not going to let him settle. He's not going to allow him to have a moment's peace. That's where we've seen him crumble. That's where we saw the mental breakdown, so to speak, that he had against Bivol, where after 6 rounds, he didn't know what to do because he just had his game plan torn up. He had his heart and soul ripped out as well. So for me, I'm going to back the Brit as well. Billam-Smith to pick up another belt, and all roads lead towards Jai Opetaia in 2025, hopefully, first quarter. So that's where we're going to end it, mate. It's been another fantastic show. Really enjoy getting back into it. Enjoyed having you on, mate. Just before we go, I'm sure everyone knows, but let people know your what your account is on X so they can give you a follow if they're not already.
Yeah, at SW Fight Hub, if you haven't followed already, really appreciate that. And obviously the same account for the YouTube channel as well, which you feature on very regularly, and for interviews, watch-alongs, No Punches Pulled podcast. So yeah, if anyone can follow and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Get over there, guys, if you're not following already. We have a lot of fun over there. We push content out on a regular basis throughout the week. So, yeah, make sure you're following SW Fight Hub if you're not already. All that's left for me to say, guys, is thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Be sure to drop myself, Liam_Tully9 on X a follow if you aren't already. Keep an eye out on my X feed for an announcement of next week's guest on Monday. And if you enjoyed what you've seen, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you soon.